The story takes place in the 19th century France. Thérèse's father, a sea captain, spent most of his time in Africa, so he was rarely home. When Thérèse's mother died, her father couldn't care for her. He decided to leave her with his sister, Madame Raquin. He sent them a little money every month to help support Thérèse, but it never felt like enough. While she was living with her aunt, Madame Raquin had a son, Camille, who had been sick for a long time and was very weak. Worry consumed Madame Raquin as she cared for him deeply. She let Thérèse share a room with Camille so she could help take care of him. As time passed, Thérèse and Camille grew older. Thérèse blossomed into a young, beautiful, while Camille remained thin, pale, and sickly. One day, Thérèse overheard a farmer working outside, and his strong presence immediately caught her attention. She felt an unexpected spark of attraction, a rush of emotions she couldn't ignore. When she saw Camille, the emotions inside her overwhelmed her. Without thinking, she impulsively asked for a kiss. Camille and Thérèse had grown up together, and over time, they became very close, but their relationship wasn't romantic. Thérèse felt disappointed because Camille wasn't the passionate partner she had hoped for. Later that day, Thérèse received the sad news that her father had died in a shipwreck. It was the realization that without his financial support, her future was uncertain that left her feeling truly lost. When Aunt Raquin asked Thérèse to marry Camille, Thérèse felt deeply unwilling in every part of her, but she didn't have the strength or courage to say no. Now, she was all alone, forced to depend on her aunt and Camille. They got married and moved to Paris. With the help of a close friend of her mother's, Camille found a job. They rented a house on a busy street. Raquin had planned to open a store to help support the family, but their house was in a narrow, dark alley, making it feel as sad and depressing as Thérèse's life at the time. Camille, weak and inexperienced, had a hard time at work and was often bullied. He spent most of his time alone, visiting the zoo, acting like a child who never grew up. He didn't seem interested in having a closer relationship with Thérèse as a husband should. One day, Camille introduced her to a man named Laurent, a childhood friend who now worked for Camille's company. Laurent was handsome and loved painting, though he had a slightly sarcastic attitude. He had always wanted to be a painter. Camille asked Laurent to paint a portrait of him, and that's when Laurent started visiting Thérèse's home often. His energetic and outgoing personality made a strong impression on her, stirring feelings she had not expected. Laurent often made bold and noticeable comments, openly talking about his past experiences, even in front of Thérèse. His words seemed to affect her deeply, leaving a strong emotional impact, whether on purpose or not. Laurent painted Camille in a way that showed his weaknesses, making him look gloomy and even mocking his appearance. Camille was excited about the portrait, thinking Laurent was a genius. He believed the painting showed his true self, just like art was meant to do. At the same time, Laurent unknowingly triggered deep emotions in Thérèse. He understood women well and could easily sense the sadness she was trying to hide. From then on, Thérèse and Laurent began meeting secretly, finding comfort in being together. Thérèse's eyes started to brighten, as if a new chapter of her life was starting. Her relationship with Camille began to fade, and she found herself sitting on the edge of her bed at night instead of sleeping next to him. What started as a simple connection with Laurent turned into deep love, and their bond grew stronger each day. They became almost inseparable. Then, unexpectedly, Camille decided to go back to the countryside, leaving everything uncertain. Thérèse felt a wave of fear and relief, a mix of emotions she had not expected. The conditions in Paris had made Camille very sick. Thérèse, however, did not want to leave. She begged her husband to stay in Paris for his work and the store, but Camille had already decided. He said, "This is an order, not a request for advice." That night, feeling desperate, she went to Laurent. She could not bear the thought of losing him. But Laurent had a dark plan. He suggested they could kill Camille and make it look like an accident. Thérèse was shocked and couldn't believe what she was hearing. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. All she knew was that everything had changed. One day out of nowhere, Camille gave Thérèse a flower. It was the first time he had ever done something so romantic, and Thérèse was completely surprised. The three of them went on a picnic, but Camille quickly got tired from the walk and lay down on top of Thérèse to rest. Seeing this, Laurent became very jealous. His feelings for Thérèse grew stronger, but so did the darkness inside him. Camille then suggested that the three of them go boating on the lake. Thérèse hesitated, feeling unsure. She worried that Laurent might have other plans, and being on the boat could put Camille in danger. After thinking it over, Thérèse finally agreed to Laurent's suggestion. In that moment, her feelings for him took over, pushing aside her concerns. Once on the calm lake, though, as the boat drifted into quieter waters, it became clear there was no turning back. Soon, the calm was broken by shouts and panics. There had been an accident. Only Laurent and Thérèse survived. Later, Laurent told his version of the story. When the boat tipped over, Camille had told him to save Thérèse first. By the time Laurent reached her, Camille had already sunk to the bottom of the river. People believed it was a tragic accident. Thérèse was overwhelmed with grief and guilt. Laurent tried to calm her down, urging her to stay strong. Madame Raquin was heartbroken after hearing about her son's death. It felt like her whole world had collapsed. Soon, they found Camille's body in the water. When Laurent saw his lifeless, decomposing form, he felt sick and nauseous. After Camille was buried, the heavy burden of their dark secret became almost too much to bear. Thérèse and Laurent were free to be together, but they found no happiness. Instead, they were haunted by guilt and their terrible secret. Thérèse felt especially crushed, watching her aunt cry every day. She felt trapped in her sham. Sometimes, Madame Raquin would get angry and ask why Thérèse had survived instead of her son. Thérèse silently took the blame but couldn't tell the truth. Later, Madame Raquin would apologize, saying her grief had made her lose control. But by then the family was full of sadness, and all their happiness was gone. Thérèse started having nightmares about the lake, reliving what happened over and over, unable to find peace. To avoid drawing attention, she and Laurent started seeing each other less and less. Luckily for them, Madame Raquin had always liked Laurent, her son's best friend. On the advice of others, she decided to marry Thérèse to Laurent. In her sadness, she even made a will leaving the store and all her belongings to them. Madame Raquin had already lost her beloved son, and now Thérèse and Laurent were the only ones left to take care of her. On the outside, Thérèse and Laurent seemed happy, thinking their new life was beginning. But inside, things were not so easy. Madame Raquin had Camille's portrait hung in her bedroom. Every time Thérèse saw it, she felt guilty. Laurent still had a scar on his neck, a painful reminder of Camille's struggle before he died. Both the scar and the portrait became constant reminders of their dark secret, never letting them forget. Thérèse suddenly realized she couldn't be with Laurent the way she used to. The memory of the lake kept haunting her, Laurent waving his oar, and Camille's final moments. These horrible images surrounded her like ghosts, and she couldn't escape them. Thérèse's life was filled with these memories, pulling her deeper into sadness. At the same time, Madame Raquin's mental health began to get worse. She couldn't stop feeling the pain of losing her son and started seeing his face, feeling the loss all over again. In the middle of her deep pain, Madame Raquin had a stroke and collapsed. She became unable to move, and Thérèse and Laurent had to take care of her for a while. Their life was very hard. Laurent's dream of being a painter was still not achieved, and he had to take care of the paralyzed Raquin and a sometimes upset Thérèse. Their life was nothing like they had hoped. There was no happiness, especially for Thérèse. Later, at a party, Raquin tried to write with her weak hand. She struggled to communicate and wanted to write that Thérèse and Laurent had killed her son, but all she managed to write were their names. She didn't have enough strength to finish. Her friends, not knowing the truth, thought she was just trying to thank Thérèse and Laurent for taking care of her, even though they had gotten away with it. Thérèse became more and more worried. She was scared that one day the truth about her and Laurent's crimes would come out. Thérèse got angry with Raquin for making her marry Camille and decided to leave the neighborhood. She had always hated her aunt for what she had done. As life became harder, Thérèse's anger grew. She blamed her crimes on Raquin. She couldn't escape her guilt. To try to forget the pain, she started going to wild parties, drinking, and trying to forget her past. During this time, her relationship with Laurent became worse. She began blaming him for the sadness in her life. When she saw him, she felt both regret and anger. Then one day, a friend of Raquin's visited and saw what Raquin had written. Thérèse and Laurent had killed Camille. Raquin's friend was so scared that she ran out and called the police. Thérèse saw what Raquin had written and realized with shock that she and Laurent had been caught. Instead of blaming Raquin, Thérèse now felt only guilt. She begged for forgiveness, knowing there was no way to escape what was coming. Everything was clear to her now, and Thérèse knew the end was near. The police would be here soon. In that moment, both of them stood close to the end, ready to say goodbye to the world together. They took Raquin to the banks of the Seine. Before they died, Thérèse and Laurent shared their feelings one last time. With trembling hands, Thérèse got the knife ready, while Laurent prepared the poison. In that moment, they both understood each other without saying a word, a deep connection before the end. They both felt a deep sense of relief. Finally, they could be honest with each other. Laurent drank first, and then Thérèse, shaking, took the bottle and drank it all. The two of them lay together like hurt animals. No matter what sins or small moments of happiness they had, death took it all away. And with that, the story ends, leaving only silence.